those of you who are new to the RelateWell Institute, we want to introduce ourselves. So we have Dr. Richard Marks, who is the founder and CEO of the RelateWell Institute. Shout out to everybody, Dr. Marks. Wave your hand so you know it's you. There he is. Okay,
I'm
boom.
here.
And then there you go. And then I am Miko Page, his sidekick. He's Batman. I'm Robin. I am his chief operating officer. And our vision is to empower transformation in individuals, couples, businesses, and churches with the skills for healthy and mature relational growth. That is our heart. So, um, please feel free to enter questions into the chat. Now, we will prioritize the questions that were sent to us ahead of time. And if we have additional time, we will get your questions that you put in the chat answered as well. All right.
And if I can, Miko,
Mhm.
if there's something that you said that you resonate with, write it in there, give feedback.
Yes.
Let's make this conversational at the same time.
Yeah, thank you for that. In addition, right next to the chat button, I think there's like a reaction button. So as we're having, this conversation, if something resonates with you, send up that's what I'm thinking, Michael. Yes, let us know. Okay. All right. So we're going to kick off this conversation and our time together with a quote. And so this is something that we're going to do every month. We're going to be hosting these conversations. So get ready. You're going to mark your calendars. I'll give you the date for the next one at the end of this one. Okay, so you don't miss it. But we're going to open with a quote. And so Dr. Marks is going to bring our quote today. All right, Dr. Marks, what you got for us?
So it's not so much a quote as it is one of my favorite proverbs. And
Okay.
don't think book of Proverbs, because every culture has their proverbs. One of my favorite proverbs is a Chinese proverb. And that Chinese proverb that I like a lot and usually quote to somebody every week is this: if you want to know what's down the road ahead of you, ask those coming back.
Ooh.
If you want to know what's down the road ahead of you, ask those coming back. See, a lot of people think, yeah, isn't that pretty cool, Mike?
Yeah.
A lot of people think, well, I have to go experience it. You might want to find out from those who've already experienced that to see if you really want to walk down that road. But if you notice, Miko and everyone, some people are just bullheaded. Well, I'm going to go do it myself. Okay,
I want
then.
to find out.
I want to find it for myself. All right, you understand that thousands of people have made that path and they came back broken and wounded. But you want to walk down it, go for it. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that Chinese proverb. We
Well, when
can
you think
learn
about
from
it,
other people's journeys and not walk a path.
Dr. Marks, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to host these conversations, is because we've learned some things in this journey of life and loving and relating. And so we are coming back and saying, hey, learn from us, learn from our mistakes, learn from our academia, learn from our lives, learn from us so that you don't have to make some of the mistakes that we've made. Because I am of the mindset that, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have wisdom that I can glean from, please let me know, because I don't have a whole lot of time in life, so I want to maximize every moment. So I absolutely love that. All right. Well, let's jump in. We've got questions. Now listen, we have answers. We don't have all the answers, and every now and then we might not have an answer. And that's okay. Okay, we'll work it out together. We may say, you know what? Let us ponder on that and come and circle back to you. But let's begin with the first question of the evening. Okay. And I really like this one because it speaks to, I think, an issue we all have, and that's regulating our emotions. We all have emotions. And so the question is, what is a quick and fun way to regulate emotions when we are around someone that pushes our buttons or reminds us of broken relationships? So they said the holidays bring nostalgia and memories of previous happy times. when we may have when we may have been, or when we have may have been cut off or alienated from those who are close to us. So how do we regulate our emotions when others push our buttons, especially if we're around people that we're normally aren't around during the holiday season? So what do you think about that, Dr. Marks?
What was the question? What is a fun way?
Well, it said, what is a quick and fun way to regulate your emotions when
Well,
you're around
I
someone
don't
who
know
pushes
how
your buttons?
fun it is when you want to yell and scream, but I tell you a good way to do it. And it's called the pause, breathe, respond.
Mm,
And by the way, all this requires self-awareness. You have to be
yes.
physiologically aware what your body's doing when you got triggered into what my mentor called an emotional allergy. An emotional
Mhm.
allergy is an intense reaction to some event in the present, but it's really about your past. But your emotional brain doesn't know it. So whenever you're triggered in that fight, flight, or freeze response, once you realize you're there, pause, put a pause on yourself, then start breathing. Once you get triggered, fight, flight, or freeze, your heartbeat's going to go over 100. The reason you breathe is you need to get your heartbeat under 100 so that
Mhm.
you can get back to the prefrontal cortex where thinking and loving and goodwill come from. You got to get out of the animal brain. If you communicate from the animal brain, you get animal outcome. If you communicate from the higher order brain, you get higher order results. So first is pause, then breathe. Now we recommend, as many people do, box breathing, or what people call they call the meditative breathing.
Meditative.
So it's a
Mhm.
4-second inhale, hold it for 4, exhale for 4. And when you do 4, 4, and 4, what you're doing is you'll slow your heart rate down. As your heart rate slows down, you'll find yourself getting more control of your body. You're more centered because you're accessing the prefrontal cortex again. Then the third step is pause, breathe, then respond. Make a choice.
Mhm.
Choose what you want to do. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes it's best not to say anything.
Mhm.
There's a proverb that says a fool appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut. See, I was a fool in the early years of my marriage because I was emotionally a child. And I always had this philosophy that if I thought something or felt something, I had to tell people. What I found out was that is actually unwise. A fool speaks without thinking about what they're saying and when they're doing it. Wisdom tells you when to talk, when not to talk. So I realized that, okay, wisdom tells me I shouldn't say anything right now. I need to shut my mouth.
Mhm.
And here's what I learned. When I started not saying things, I found out this fool got a lot smarter. This fool started getting a lot smarter. So if you think about it that way, everyone, um, pause, breathe, and then respond. If you can't get control, another technique is call a timeout on yourself and leave the room.
Mhm.
Just call a timeout
Yeah.
on
Just,
yourself, leave the room, and get yourself together. And
yeah.
when you
Yeah.
call a timeout on yourself, we're not calling like timeout to stop the action. It's a timeout to get yourself centered again. So when you
Mhm.
do that, um, stay away for at least 20 minutes. You go, why 20 minutes, doc? I'm so glad you asked. Here's why. Once you start getting adrenaline into your bloodstream for fight, flight, or freeze, it takes about 15 minutes for it to dissipate. I like an extra 5 just to make sure. That's 20 minutes. Then you can come back and deal with something when you're both more centered and in your higher order brain. Now you can speak the truth in love. Now you can be slow to anger, quick to hear, and slow to speak. Once we get back to the prefrontal cortex.
Mhm. And it honors you, and it honors the other person.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it honors both of you.
And
Self-awareness is
those who know our work understand that our core, we have 4 relational values we live by: humility, respect, empathy, goodwill. But each of those protect the most important part of all of us, which is our relationships. We call it us. 2 to make an us, 1 to kill it. And so everything we believe, yes, that's right, Misty H. Ray. HREG is the protective wall for your relationship. So when you move to HREG, you're not just in control of yourself, you're also controlling yourself so that you don't harm the relationship. And that's the real, yeah.
that's a
And
very
that's the,
powerful place to be able to um, have the self-awareness and then the self-control to be able to do that.
yes, Rachel, I like how you worded that. You can give yourself permission to be quiet. I always
Mhm.
find giving myself permission to do something empowers me.
Yes.
I go, well,
Yes.
how come I stay quiet? Because you haven't given yourself permission to stay quiet. What if you give yourself permission to be quiet when something happens again? Oh, well, if you give yourself permission to do it, then you'll remember you gave yourself permission. Now you can choose it.
Yes.
Or stay in your animal brain and get animal outcome.
There
That's
was
an
a
option
quick
too, right?
question. There was a quick question I want to address before we move to the next question, and that was, does HREG change if you're dealing with, I guess, an alcoholic or someone who is, I guess, has an addiction or they have an anger issue? Who you are, if you're choosing to operate in HREG and be HREG, it doesn't matter what the other person is or isn't doing, because you're showing up as HREG because that is your value system. It is who you are. And as part of that value system, it doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries, that you allow people to disrespect you or to harm you, because HREG says, if you continue to talk to me that way, or if you continue to behave that way, then I'm going to remove myself from this situation. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Some
you.
people used, Nico, over the years, people have asked me, why do you treat people, Doc, with goodwill and respect when they're disrespectful to you? If you think about that question, it's really interesting. It would assume that I treat people based on the way that I'm being treated. Thus, I have no agency within myself. And the answer is the reason I treat people with goodwill, respect, even when they don't treat me with that, has nothing to do with them. It has to do with what I have decided to be.
That's right.
And other people don't dictate whether I'm mature and healthy. I dictate that. So if someone acts a fool around me, go ahead. I'm still going to treat you goodwill and respect. Why? Because that's how I've decided to be. You don't dictate who I am. I dictate who I am. Think about, Mika, we've talked about this before, how so many people lose their faith in a traffic jam. They throw their faith out the door, and then they're staring and yelling at people. And then they got a Jesus loves you bumper sticker on their car or the name of their church.
Yeah.
And we wonder why people don't want to go to church is because we have not lived out maturely love. And I think the
Well,
purpose of the gospel is to mature us in love so that no matter where we are, we're treating people with love. But what is love? Well, we say it this way in our world, that love embodies humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill. Because in love is humility, is respect, is empathy, and is goodwill.
I'll wrap up this question with this. We strongly encourage people not to have humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill. Because if I have something, I can manipulate it to do what I want it to do, versus becoming humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill. Because God doesn't have love, He is love. So everything He does is loving. So if I become humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill, it doesn't matter what happens in my environment. It doesn't matter what happens, what someone else does or says. My response is gonna be HREG. Now, will that be perfectly? No, because no one is perfect, but maturely, yes. That means more often than not, on a consistent basis, that is how I show up, no matter how much I am squeezed by life or other people. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next one. I thought this was an interesting question, especially when we are living in an era where a lot of people are having to live out or recover from trauma in their lives. And so the question was how to get past previous trauma that unexpectedly comes up in new relationships without the other person thinking that you're a red flag. So you're in this new relationship and something happens, trauma, your experience, it triggers a memory, an experience about previous trauma. And now that person, you don't want them thinking that you're a red flag, stay away. How would one address that?
Alcohol and drugs. Being silly,
This,
being silly. Don't go out there go,
this,
guys, beat a nut, right?
this is where you all are introduced if you're not familiar with Dr. Marx's humor. Okay, come on. Mhm.
Yeah. So that's a great question. Um, of course, you can go to therapy, which can help you. My background's a psychologist, so I'm not anti those things. The problem with the therapy side is you can spend years working on the issue, the trauma, and you're still not functioning in the present. So I always tell people, look, you can go back and work through the trauma from the past, but right here, right now, I have to have the skills to make a decision. And
Mhm.
whenever we give ourselves over to the past, we've lost agency. I don't know if people know what I mean by that. We've lost self-empowerment. We've lost the ability to decide for ourselves. That's agency. And then we let other things or people decide for us, particularly issues from the past. It's what I used to do. Well, my dad, well, my stepmother, as if I'm not complicit in what I'm doing in the present. My dad's been dead 41 years. I can't blame him for what I do today. Those are my choices.
Mhm.
So what I learned was, yeah, we were shocked with the cow prod and all that kind of abuse crap. I had all that. But in the end, I still had to learn to take responsibility for the effects of what happened to me and not let them dictate my present. Now, it took work. I'm not saying it happened overnight, but the simple answer was I had to care enough to want to be different. And the key word's
Mhm.
enough. Some
Mhm.
people care, but they don't care enough yet. In other words, the brain is designed to do one thing really well: avoid pain, pursue pleasure, right, Miko?
That's
And
right.
so you think of it this way: when we get, as they say in AA, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired,
You'll
that
do
means
something.
you met the pain threshold. You'll do something different, guaranteed.
Mhm.
And so you realize that, okay, I can have the effect of the trauma, but I can still choose to be respectful in the moment.
That's
I can
right.
still move to humility. I can still move to empathy. Why? That's agency on my part. That's agency on my part. I can still treat people with respect and goodwill, even though I'm being triggered. You see, the
I
trigger
would
is,
I would
go ahead.
so one of the things that came to my mind as I read this question was thinking, okay, in that moment, let's just say you're engaging with your partner and they're bringing to your awareness behavior that doesn't make sense in the moment and you realize you're being triggered. Don't ignore it, just acknowledge it, and ask, okay, in this moment, how am I coming across? What was I doing or saying that gave you the indication that I was being triggered? So the first one of the keys, I think, is having the personal awareness, self-awareness of when you're being triggered. And then you're able to maybe talk with your partner about that. Like, okay, so this is what's going on in me. When you did this, I felt this. My brain said X, Y, and Z. And we teach people how to work through these processes and give them language to be able to communicate. But having the self-awareness and just saying, hey, there are things in my past that impact me in our relationship, things that you may say or do. I would let's talk about them, because I'm growing, I'm seeking to heal and be better. So having the self-awareness, don't ignore it, but bring it into the light and talk about it. Invite your partner into that space so that you all can have a dialogue about it so that you can grow through it. It's many times it's a journey.
I wrote about this today in an article on identity and how identity is formed, those kind of things. Miko's right. When you're in that trigger, you've got to become aware that you're triggered. But then you have to understand the trigger. So
Mhm.
ask yourself questions like this. Okay, um, Luella did this and I got triggered. What is my brain telling me
Telling
about what
me.
she did as it relates to me? as it relates to me. Oh, my brain says she thinks I'm stupid. Oh, okay. So the trigger is because your brain, when she did that, your brain told you that she thinks she's stupid. Yeah.
Mhm.
And now I'm triggered because I think that she thinks I'm stupid. You know what I didn't do, Miko?
You didn't check it out. Come out
I
here
didn't
like,
find out. I didn't find out if it's true.
that's right.
I
We
just
make
assumed it.
assumptions.
And then I made it a reality. And for all
Yep.
I know, Luell thinks I'm brilliant, but I didn't ask. So I
Hmm.
now treat her out of the assumption that my brain is making about that. And
Right.
so self-awareness is about being aware what's happening, but also it's about naming the emotion. This is
Yeah.
very important. You must name an emotion. By naming an emotion, it loses power over you. Neuroscience
Hmm.
shows it as well. Once I name it, I can tame it. Because
Oh,
once
can
I
I give
name,
a little tip right there? And
yeah,
when you name it, okay, and let me give you a tip. This is simple but so powerful. When you are communicating an emotion, do not use words like or that. I feel like I'm sad. I feel that I'm sad. Remove those words. I feel, and then use the feeling word. I feel sad. It's much more powerful and it communicates in a more significant way. And now you're owning the emotion versus the other person. When you say like or that, their brain is thinking, okay, do you feel sad or don't you? No, I feel sad. I feel disappointed. I feel rejected. Okay, go ahead.
now she just kind of led me she just led us where we're going. So this is really good. This is all scripted. Can you tell? We're saying all these things because
It's
we
a
know what we're doing.
conversation.
Yeah. So I encourage people to go to Amazon or someplace like that and purchase a feeling wheel or a feelings list. All right. Mainly because we need to have, yeah, we use these here. Someone says, well, I don't know what I'm feeling. I go, well, here's a whole bunch of them. All right. Choose one. There's only like 6 core emotions. All right. Anger, sad, fear, um, uh, puzzle. There's a couple more there. Um, but then there's expressions of all of those. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to have language. Most people say, well, I'm hurt. Okay, well, rejection hurts, helpless hurts, powerless hurts, betrayed hurts. All which one?
Mm-hmm.
Once I go, oh, I'm feeling betrayed. Ah, now by naming it, we've tamed it. And now we can look at it. And naming it puts it in your hand in a sense. Got it? Now it's
Mm-hmm.
out
Yep.
here. Now I can look at it and ask myself questions about it. Is Lua really betraying me? Does she have a habit of betraying me? Well, no. So I just feel betrayed. But by
Mm-hmm.
naming it, I put it out here. I can look at it now. And I can begin to ask myself, is it true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's not true. And all the while, what you're doing is you're regulating your trigger.
That's right. All right. Awesome. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Oh, okay. Here we go. We're just gonna jump into the deep end. All right. Here it is. What are the markers that divorce is the only way forward?
Whoa.
I know.
Whoa.
Yeah. You
All
could
right.
we could come
So
at that a couple of different.
I've not looked at any of these questions. I told Miko I'm better on the fly. So this is all mine's off the cuff. First thing, the very first thing is takes 2 to make us and 1 to kill it.
Okay,
So
say that again, please.
when one person is clear, they are not working on behalf of us, they do not want us, then you are headed for divorce, or you will live miserably married.
Mm-hmm.
That's you got 2 options there. So
Mm-hmm.
the first one is if one person makes it clear they only care about themselves, they do not care about us, then you cannot have a healthy, strong marriage. It's impossible. 2 to making us want to kill it. That's a lecture I give called The Power of Us. You can find it on YouTube. Now, other ways. When you have chronic alcohol and drug abuse,
Mm-hmm.
those tend towards divorce
Mm-hmm.
as a group, statistically. All right. When there's physical violence, emotional
Yeah.
abuse, severe abuse, you're a marker you're headed for divorce. Unless somehow you like being abused, then you won't be. But at some point, the brain goes, enough's enough. I have a very close friend of mine. She's in her 80s. Her first marriage was very violent. She was beaten regularly. And about 15, 16 years of marriage, the guy took a loaded shotgun and put it right there in her face.
Wow.
And Donna said, I looked at him and said, pull the trigger. I don't care.
Wow.
That's what she told him. Pull the trigger. I don't really care. And she heard herself say that.
Mm.
And it was in that moment she realized just how damaged she was. And she left.
Mm.
Then she met Frank. And her and Frank had a phenomenal marriage till he died.
Wow.
I keep up with Donna this day. She's a dear friend of me.
Mm.
And so that's another marker. And you know,
Yeah.
Christians always say, you know, God hates divorce. That's true. That's the book of Malachi. But I have to remind people, the very God that hates divorce in the New Testament permits it in 3 areas, by the way. Abandonment. If someone doesn't want to be there, even emotionally, that's a marker that you're headed for divorce or at least living miserably. Abuse, of course, we talked about that. Chronic alcohol and drugs. And by the way, let me speak to the chronic alcohol and drug from a research standpoint. People go, well, that's not related to the Bible. That's true. Unless you recognize that it's a form of abandonment. I am choosing a substance, an object, or a process over us.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what the research shows. Well, I'm going to honor my vows. Okay. Now you understand research. The effects of a child in a chronic alcoholic or drug addicted home, the effects of that child are far more damaging than the effects of divorce. And when one person says, I'm not changing, I go, great, respect it. Now I'm in position to stop the effects on the kids. Because now I go, well, we got to protect the kids then. So which is the great least less evil, if you will.
Right. Because in the home, that's chronic. If the child is in a home, in that environment consistently, that is ongoing. There's not an opportunity for the child to be out of that environment and to heal. I mean, it's ongoing.
And so at that point, my posture has always been, well, then we'll protect the kids from you. Because I got to minimize consequences.
Yes.
And I'll protect the kids. If you're not worried about the effects of what you're doing on your children, that's cool. But somebody's got to. I mean, the state will jump in at some point if in certain situations, right? Why? Because the state's going to minimize the effects on kids.
Yeah.
And sadly, Miko, 30 years of doing this work, I have met many adult children who come in for therapy years later, chronic alcoholic dad or abusive dad or whatever. And you know who they're most mad at?
The mom.
The mom.
I'm hearing it as well.
She kept us in it.
Over.
I get that she had her religious beliefs, but she kept us in it. And by keeping us in it for her religious beliefs, we were further damaged.
Yeah.
And you go, you're right. You're right. And you can't run from it. There's a truth in that statement. And it's sad. It's sad, but it's still true.
And from the spouse that is in that position, it's unfair that you've been put in a position to have to make a decision that you never wanted to have to make.
Yeah.
You know,
I have a phrase, and Miko knows it. Never treat a person on a regular basis whereby, now, never treat a person on a regular basis. That's about consistency. That's a pattern. Whereby your actions puts them in a position to have thoughts they never wanted to have. In other words, if I treat Luelle in a certain way, which is unhealthy, at some point her brain's going to think, well, does he love me? Does he respect me? Does he want to be with me? Where do those thoughts come from? It came from the way I've been treating her.
Yes.
And the other piece of that is never treat a person on a regular basis whereby you put them in a position to make a decision they never want to make. You see, most people earn their divorce. That's clear. You treated them in such a way you convinced them to leave. It's not rocket science.
Because you
Matter of fact,
consistently sent the message, I don't value you.
and I don't
I
care.
don't love and so the brain is like, okay, yeah.
And once you treat a person in a way that devalues them on a regular basis, never treat a person in a way that devalues them. Because when you treat someone in a way that devalues them in language, words, attitude, they're going to figure out that you don't value them, and they're going to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go. And then there was a Baptist preacher a couple of years ago in my office, treated his wife like crap, 20-something years, and his wife's divorcing, and he's bothered by it. And I said, why are you bothered about it? Well, she's divorcing me. I know. You've treated her like crap for 20-something years, sir. You should have been expecting this sooner, in my mind.
Mm.
You convinced her you don't value her because love doesn't treat people the way you've treated her all these years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a pastor who teaches on love, but you didn't become it, which is what Miko was talking about earlier, folks. We don't want people to have love. We want you to become it.
Okay. Yes.
God doesn't have love. The Bible says he is love. Having love
Mm-hmm.
is love. They're not the same in language. So we want people to become humility, become respect, become goodwill. Why? Then you'll always be kind. You'll always have integrity. Why? Because HREG leads you there as the way of being. And that was a phrase my mentor always used with me. We all have a way of being, Rick. Change your way of being, and you'll change outcomes.
There you
go. Right
go.
about that.
Before we move on to the next question, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with, our language or lingo, so HREG, humility equals respect, empathy, and goodwill. Basically, it's the way that you can live out how to be loving. It operationalizes the word in a very tangible way. All right. Okay. Next question. Now, let me just say before I share this question, we're going to have maybe a 2 or 3 part conversation on this topic, okay? But we're just going to hit it real quick tonight, all right? So here we go. Why is sex so, capital S-O, important to men and not so important to women? So, Dr. Marks, I'm definitely going to throw this one your way, and then I'll chime in on the back end from a woman's perspective. But please, you have the floor. Why is sex so important to men?
There is embedded in the assumption that is a truth. In Sheila Gregoire's book, The Great Sex Revolution, I forget her name. She's a Christian woman who wrote on this topic at length.
Okay.
And she convinced me. Sex is just as important to women as it is to men. The problem is men dominate the sex language, and in the Christians markets, all the sex books are written by men for men. Thank you, whoever wrote The Great Sex Rescue. Get that book, folks.
The Great Sex Rescue?
Yes, okay. By Sheila Gregoire. Right. Phenomenal book. She shows you that the teaching around sex in the church has damaged women even sexually. It has caused dyspareunia, vaginismus, which are sexual disorders that are linked to mental health issues. The sexual teaching of the church represses women's sexuality. And here's the other thing. It made women responsible for whether a boy lusted or not. And like she says, you show me in scripture where a man is not responsible for his sexual sin, it's the woman's fault. And I'm like, it ain't there.
Right.
It ain't there. So what I've learned is I have someone very dear to me. He's a man. His wife has the sex drive, not him. He can take it or leave it. I know other men, low sex drive, who have wives with high sex drives. So if you're a man that has a high sex drive and your wife doesn't, and you meet a guy whose wife has a high sex drive, you're going to hate him. You're thinking, why can't my wife be that way? So in every relationship, Michelle Wiener Davis' book is called The Sex something or other. It's about when one person has a high sex drive and a person has a low sex drive, How do you navigate that in marriage? It's a great book.
Mhm.
She has a TED talk on it. Michelle Wiener Davis, she's like internationally known, and she's a friend. But her book on the sex star of marriage, that's what it's called, the name of her book. And you
Mhm.
do her TED talk on the sex star of marriage. It's one of the top 5 in all the TED talks, is that talk. And so I would argue that men and women both have a sex drive. It's just that men get respected for theirs and talked about, but women, as a gender, theirs is minimized. And the Great Sex Rescue by Sheila Gregoire gives the data and the evidence behind it, because she interviewed over 20,000 Christian
Wow.
women.
Wow.
Nobody polled them, so she did, and
Mm.
that's what she found out. As a matter of fact, she was the one in her marriage who had the high sex drive,
Mm.
and so I think that's why I was like, well, I don't know if I actually agree with the
Well, let me
assumption.
say this. So
Yeah,
let me, because I know we have
you're a
people
woman.
thinking.
What would you say?
Well, and I know we probably have some people on here thinking it. If we look at it as a whole, as genders, could we not say though that as a whole, men tend to have a higher sex drive, i.e., value sex in a greater way, generally speaking, than women. Um,
Yes, because of one thing:
okay.
testosterone.
Th-
There's the great Christian therapist Pat Love. She wrote a book called Hot Monogamy, and she
Oh,
had a very, very low sex drive. Her husband Spanky, and it harmed the relationship quite a bit in the early years of their marriage. And she was so fun watching when I saw this conference. I was there when she talked about it, and she's talking about it, and she talked her doctor into giving her testosterone.
uh-huh,
He was reluctant to do it. She said, "All right," he goes, "I'll do it for 30 days." And when she's telling us she got the testosterone, I think it was a patch or something, she paused and she looked at us in the room. There were about 1,000. She goes, "Folks, I had never been so horny in all my life." She said, "I found myself looking at other men's crotches." And we're like, "What?" And yeah, she's just that open about it. And then she
uh-huh,
said, "One day I was getting a shower and I was horny. And so she
uh-huh,
said, I approached Spanky, and Spanky turned me down. And she said this: "It was in that moment I know what he had felt for years in our marriage." Because she was feeling the drive because she had testosterone. So testosterone drives the sex drive in men. That's why when
uh-huh,
men get a depletion of sex drive, of testosterone, their sex drive tends to go down.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have always wanted to smuggle testosterone in my wife's coffee. Just joking.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up that question with this. We are committed to exploring this topic in greater length because there's so much to say about it and we just do not talk about it. And so just know we're coming. We're
Can I,
gonna dedicate at least 1 or 2 months to just talking about that topic. Okay.
Nicole had an interesting question right there. Nicole, I think the answer to what you just asked, the difference between a high sex drive and unhealthy perspective, a high sex drive is biological.
Mhm.
But if that person with a high sex drive goes, "Well, I want us to have threesomes and foursomes," wait a minute, that's an unhealthy perspective of sex.
Mhm.
So a high sex drive is just biology. It's a high sex drive, right? But
Mhm.
how they express that sex drive will tell you whether it's healthy or unhealthy. So that's my
There
simple
you go. Yeah.
answer to your
Mhm.
statement. And let me say this to you. People always ask me, how come you don't talk about sex much? Um, and I do have lectures on sex. I just don't teach them much. Here's why. My mentor, Dr. Gordon, her training was 5 3-day weekends. It was a semester course. I went through it like 3 or 4 times. I was a master teacher of her semester course. We never talked about sex until the fourth weekend. And I asked her, I said, Lori, why are we dealing with sex so far back in the program? She was a wise woman, folks. She said, why would you teach people about sex when they don't know how to bond or communicate yet? Pushing sex is not a remedy for pain.
Mm-hmm.
It is an outgrowth of a deeply intimate, connected marriage. So we're going to teach people how to become healthy, mature adults that can love well, so that out of that deep love, the sex relationship can express itself in a powerful way. And I thought, well,
Amen.
I said, we Christians don't do that. She said, and that's why you harm people. You're teaching
Mm-hmm.
people about sex who don't know how to bond yet. You're harming the relationship. I went, it's true. Sex doesn't build connection. It is an outgrowth of
Of
connection.
connection. Mm-hmm.
You can have sex, right, Mika, with no love.
With no love. That's right. That's right. Okay. We have time for we can squeeze in two more questions here. All right. So, okay. I want to highlight this question because we've seen this come up when we're working with couples in intensives and partners or spouses not being able to leave and cleave. And so the question is, how do you get your spouse to establish boundaries with their parents? How can I create and mandate that people respect my boundaries? What causes a married man to not leave his parents and cleave to his wife? And we could just say a married person, period, because we see women that don't leave and cleave as well as men that don't leave and cleave. And so this is from the heart of, okay, what do I do with a partner who won't leave and cleave?
You asking
To
me?
be able to establish boundaries with their parents.
You asking me? Let me go ask my mom. Hey, mom, just a little bit of fun there. All right, so let's think about it. Emotional maturity is the goal of life for us as adults. Become healthy, mature adults so we can love
Yes.
maturely.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, this is my take, I'm not saying I'm right, but I believe I'm right. It's because on some level, that's still an emotional little girl, little boy that still needs their parents in their life.
Mm-hmm.
If there's the emotional attachment is greater to the parent than it
Yeah.
is to the spouse,
Mm-hmm.
that's an immaturity issue.
Mm-hmm.
Some reason you have not, Bowen called it differentiation,
Mm-hmm.
individuation. You've not differentiated yourself from your family of origin. Thus, you're not individuated into your own person yet. Because in those kinds of people, as a group, their identity is wrapped up in being a son or a daughter, not a husband or a wife.
Oh, wow.
And because my identity is a son and a daughter, then that becomes my primary
Right.
relationship.
Relationship.
Because I'm not mature enough to become a husband and a wife yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is the problem, in my
Mm-hmm.
personal opinion. And I'm not saying I'm right, but the majority of times I've seen this over 30 years, that's been the reason. You see, because
Mm-hmm.
the family dynamic is such that I'm going to be honest with you. I was so enmeshed to my father when I was a young man. If he said jumped, I jumped. If he liked me, I liked me. He wasn't mad. If he was mad at me, I was mad at me. I had no
Mm-hmm.
sense of self. And Miko, even in my dating with Luella and we got engaged, I wanted my dad to be my best man. He's my idol,
Mm-hmm.
right? I called him up and I said, all right, go to Genghis Formal Wear and get this gray tux. And he said, I will wear black or I will not be there. And I said, black it is, Dad.
Oh,
Didn't
wow.
ask Luella, didn't tell her. I just made the decision. Why? I
Because that
couldn't,
was what your dad wanted.
I don't want him mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
And he died 2 weeks before he got married. And take this with goodwill, everybody. I'm glad he did. I would have allowed him to destroy my marriage.
Mm.
I could not say no.
Because you were not in a place in your
Oh
own
no, my
maturity
identity was
where you,
wrapped up
yeah.
in him.
Mm-hmm.
It's called
Mm-hmm.
enmeshment. I had no
Yeah.
boundaries, but my sense of self was linked to how he thought of me, what he felt about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I know this so well. I was that guy early on, but the Lord took my dad And so I had to learn to grow up. And fortunately, he was not a negative force in our marriage, but I would have let him because I was already doing it in our engagement time.
All right, so we're going to take just a couple of more minutes on this question. So to the spouse who is married to someone who is in this enmeshed relationship with their parents, I think a great starting place, if you haven't already, is being very specific and articulating with respect and goodwill what are some specific behaviors that your partner engages in with his parents that come across as disrespectful or a violation of your boundaries, and have that conversation with your partner. Invite him or her into that conversation. Say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Can we talk? When you do X, Y, and Z with your parents, that's disrespectful to me, because so you're sharing your perspective, but you're doing it in a way that is honoring, non-accusatory, but you're giving yourself a voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
also, if you do what she just said, remember this truth, and we believe this to be true as a part of our whole conversation on HREG. It is disrespectful to give people input into their life without their permission. You don't like it when people do it to you. They're not going to like it when you do it to them. So what I learned a long time ago around being respectful is this. If I want to say something to Luella about something she's doing, I say, hey, can I share a thought about what you just said? Can I share an observation about what happened? And if she says no, I keep it to myself. So always ask permission first. In a relationship of equals, ask permission. Get their permission so you can give them feedback.
okay. Last question. We had several more. I'm so sorry we couldn't get to everyone's question, but the last question is, in this world that we're living in, where there's a lot of emphasis right now on self-care, okay, and healthy self is important in a relationship. How do we find the balance so we're not crossing over into selfishness? So, I think they're asking, what does that balance look like? Self-care versus selfishness, and how do I know when I'm trending in the wrong direction?
So words have meaning, and the way the words we use create conversations in my head. So I always just listen to what was asked. I'm going to say, get rid of the word balance, because now I have to talk about this versus that. Got it? I would get that out of your brain and just say it this way. There's nothing wrong with self-care. Become the best version of you. You can't love another till you love yourself. That's healthy self-worth, healthy self-esteem. Get your needs met. Just don't cause harm to anybody else when you do it. Simple. Become the best version of you, and you're doing that so you have the greatest relationships. It's both and, not one or the other.
So I want to highlight something you said. You said, so getting your needs met. So let's talk about that really quickly, because that's so important. As a human being, we have needs. Dr. Ferguson identified that all human beings have we have two sets of needs. We have biological needs, and then we have relational needs. Dr. Ferguson's work identifies 10 relational needs that all human beings have, that can all be tied back to scripture. And so when we don't have those relational needs met, we experience pain, we feel unloved, and those needs can only be met in the context of relationships. So me getting my needs met in healthy ways is responsible. It speaks to my humanity. Just like I eat food to meet my biological needs, I am going to engage in relationship in healthy ways and have I have a right to have those relational needs met, but not at the expense of my husband or my kids or Dr. Marks. So I'm not taking them or causing him harm in expecting him to meet my needs, but in a healthy way, I can expect to have my needs met, because that is part of what I need to be a healthy whole person, because we are created to connect in healthy ways with each other. God told Adam, it is not good for man to be alone. Not everyone is called to marriage, but everyone is called to healthy relationships. So,
Yes. So I think that the best way to answer that question is become the best version of you while at the same time always making sure you don't harm your relationships.
yes.
Selfishness is a form of weakness, emotional weakness. That's all it is. It's emotionally weak people. That's why they're selfish. But
Mhm.
because they're emotionally weak, the selfish, they harm relationships.
Mhm.
It's real simple.
And
So,
going back to what you said about self-worth and self-esteem, when your self-worth, the value you place on yourself is high, and self-esteem, the way you think about yourself, when those are high, self-worth and high self-esteem, then you can easily, or you're more apt to meet other people's needs. So you are others focused because you're operating from a place of health. So that would be the antidote of selfishness, because I'm healthy whole. I can meet your needs, husband, spouse, coworker, mom, dad, whoever the case may be, in a relational, if I'm in relationship with you.
yeah, I would, it is a place of health. My brain said it this way when you said that. It's a place of humility.
Yes.
The more humble we become, the higher self worth and your self esteem will grow.
Mm-hmm.
The more prideful you are, you lower your self worth and the lower self esteem you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just that simple. Einstein
Yes.
said, make things simple, but not too simple. It is simple to the brain. So humility, the more humble you become, the more powerful you become, the stronger you are. So you can give to relationships. Why? I'm already so secure in who I am, humility. I don't need to take from Luella. I don't need to hurt her. Why? Why would I do that? If I did that, that's about who I am. I don't want to be that person. And I'm not that person. So I will treat her with goodwill and respect no matter what. Why? Because I'm goodwill and respect, because I live that way. That's high self-worth, self-esteem. So I think hopefully whoever asked that question, if they're online with us, kind of understands the balance part is more about this. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
get that out of your head. Strong, healthy self-worth, you'll become the best version of you. Just don't harm relationships as you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, you'll grow as a person and you'll grow your relationships. You'll be doing both and.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay. All right, everyone. That brings us to a close for this evening, but I have some important information. So hang with me for the next 2 minutes, okay? The next Relate Well conversations, mark your calendars, January the 6th from 6:30 to 7:30. And so the goal is we will have these monthly, the first Tuesday of every month from 6:30 to 7:30. We will post the event so that you can register on our events page of our website. We'll also have it on social media as well as our Facebook page. All right. Now, if you want to stay connected, stay in the know, go to our website, RelateWellInstitute.com. There you will see and gain access to our social media handles, which is a great way to stay connected, because anything's going on, we're going to post it on social. For example, we are really, really close. I know we've been talking about this for about a year and a half, to releasing our app. It has been a labor of love, but we're coming really close. So you'll hear about it on social media. Also on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter. That's another way to stay in the know of our events. All right. And then our library, our YouTube library. Listen, you want to talk about a treasure trove of relationship education. You can get a PhD in relating well and loving maturely by spending time in our YouTube library. So even if you just say, every day, just watch a video, watch a video, you will, that's part of becoming humility, respect, empathy, goodwill, because what you do consistently will bear fruit. Okay. So lastly, Today, if you're not aware, is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is an annual global day of generosity that occurs the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And so, what it does is it encourages people to basically give to their community, to invest. And so, we are a ministry, we are a nonprofit. And so, we would be honored if you would come alongside and help hold up our arms as we continue to invest in you and in others in our community and in couples and marriages. And so I'm going to put the link to, you can go to our website and click donate, and it'll take you directly to our donate page. And right now, I am going to put the link in the chat. There
And
is no amount that is too small. Every dollar matters. And we just believe that God will multiply that seed that you sow and what we believe is good ground in the work that we are doing. So thank you everyone for
hey, hang
logging
on just a
in.
minute. Hang on just a minute. And I want to thank Account on Misty for the support
Yay!
she's given this ministry for years. She's been a jewel and a blessing, has kept me out of trouble from the accounting side. If you have a small organization or large and you look for someone, go to her. She's actually been hanging out here with us today as
Misty, will
well.
you put Misty, put your number in the chat for the people. And if you need her contact information, everyone, another great way to connect with us is our info at relatewellinstitute.com. I get all of that communication. So if you have questions about anything, call us or send us an email, info at relatewellinstitute.com. So
And then
Misty, if you could put your information in the chat.
And there are two things that are coming out. I just finished a corporate leadership training, all based on emotionally mature leadership built around HREG identity integrity. And probably the next 2-3 months, 3 months max, people have asked me for years, how come you don't do parenting? Well, guess what? We now have a RelateWell parenting program based on all these concepts and constructs. It's a 16 session parenting curriculum that will be all online. And so we just say we're here to support you, encourage you. Some people need coaching, call us. Miko does a lot of our coaching for couples or for individuals. We're not just about, I tell people, I get pigeonholed in marriage, but I do a lot more than marriage. I do fatherhood. We work with college kids. I do a lot of
Oh my
different things.
gosh, yes.
I get pigeonholed in marriage, but really about relationships.
The ships.
That's why we're not
The
called
brain
Married
is the
Well. We're called
brain.
Relate Well. So, anyways, I just want to throw that out there for everybody, and thank you from me and Miko for coming
Yes.
alongside us and being here tonight. You made a choice to come and join us, and we thank you for that. And we hope it was of value to you.
Yes. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.